All right, we'll move on to right here in Israel, a story that has been getting headlines really for decades, but is turning up the heat lately. The relationship between the military and the national religious. It's a very complicated one, to say the least. They are often the most highly motivated soldiers, those from the national religious sector, often seeking frontline service or signing on for military careers. But the tension between that part of Israeli society and the IDF has grown. Former Deputy Chief of Staff Yair Naveh is the most senior religious officer to ever serve in the Israeli military. He sat down with our senior defense correspondent, Shai-Ben-ari.
Yair Naveh is a captivating figure. He has served in a range of different positions at the top levels of the Israel Defense Force, eventually becoming Deputy Chief of Staff. As such, he is the most senior religious officer to have served in the Israeli army. The enlistment rates of the national religious sector are among the highest in Israel, but recent years have seen plenty of tension between this community and top army brass. One of the main flashpoints is the Army's insistence on the service of female combat soldiers in mixed battalions with their male counterparts, something that has angered many national religious rabbis. Naveh's views on female combat service are unique.
I support the idea, but I would build the units a bit differently. I don't understand the idea of mixed companies. I would, for example, set up separate companies for men and for women to allow more freedom in terms of behavior between operations. A woman should decide whatever she wants, including being in the army. I actually think that there is more modesty in the military sphere than in the civilian sphere. I think that spending the Sabbath on a base in the Golan Heights is much more modest than going to the beach in Tel Aviv.
These days, many of the younger generation of IDF officers belong to the national religious sector, far exceeding their percent of the population. Despite this fact, at the moment, there isn't even one religious officer on the general staff, the Army's top decision-making body. We asked Naveh if he thought this was strange.
It's not strange if it is a momentary limited phase. If this continues, it perhaps won't be strange, but it won't be good either. When I was on the general staff, there were actually 3 of us there at the same time for a certain period. All of us came from the same yeshiva school, in fact. So can religious officers make it there? The answer is yes. There's no reserved spot for a religious officer on the general staff, and that's the way I think it should be. I hope this won't cause religious officers to stop at the level of brigade commander or something similar, and that they continue to aspire to get to the general staff, to be a part of the team that influences the army in terms of leadership and being the face of the IDF.
Naveh's relationship with his own national religious community is a complex one. In 2005, in closed meetings, he argued fiercely against the pullout of Israeli settlers from the Gaza Strip. He lost that argument and was then tasked with carrying out the withdrawal. He paid a heavy personal price for following those orders.
If you have to arrive at your synagogue with a bodyguard, and you are even interrupted during prayer a few times, then of course that wounds you. It's a wound that doesn't heal. It's a wound that leads you to cut off ties with quite a few people who grew up with you. I tried to explain to the religious community that if I, as a veteran religious general, had resigned because of not wanting to follow military orders, that would have caused enormous damage to the community. In that case, would you have even asked me today why there are no religious officers on the general staff? Probably not, because it would have been obvious that because of the Naveh affair, there could be no place in the general staff for religious officers for some 30 years, because they would always be suspected of insubordination in trying times. The national religious community still has a ways to go in terms of learning tolerance and re-understanding religious and national relations.
Shai-Ben-ari, I-24 News.